after they've had too many holiday drinks. And since Governor Ducey and the Department of Highway Safety began this campaign, we've seen greater awareness about the perils of drunk driving, and it appears more and more people are getting the message by calling Lyft or calling Uber or getting a cab or getting a designated driver. But sadly, that's the good news. And the bad news is that we still need to remind people every season about traffic safety and about the dangers of driving drunk. Because all too often we hear about people who are getting arrested for DUI. Just read an article again this morning of the numbers over the Thanksgiving holiday. That's one of the reasons why we are so grateful to be here to help reinforce that message. People have choices during this time of the year. We ask them not to make the wrong choice. While we're kicking off this campaign, it's also important to remember our own family and friends that sometimes we need to remind. Ask them to make plans to get a cab, to download a ride-sharing app, to get a designated driver after that party. Either way, we ask people to make the right choice and don't drink and drive this season. You know, people estimate the cost of getting a DUI to themselves is about $10,000. And I did a little bit of math. $10,000 buys a lot of nice Christmas gifts. For 10 grand, you can take Uber to San Diego 6 times. You fly 4 people to Paris for New Year's, first class. People have choices. Remind them this is not just expensive, it is dangerous. Otherwise, guys and gals like the ones right here will find you and arrest you, and that is no way to celebrate your holiday. Thank you again for having this event. Thank you for all the awareness you create, and please stay safe out there.
And we'll reemphasize some of the things Michelle said. Arizona is second to none when it comes to DUI enforcement. The best, toughest laws in the country. We have people get adjudicated in Arizona compared to some other states. But more than anything else is the dedication. You know, this year so far, we just crossed the 1 million traffic stops, and we're up to about 22,000 DUI arrests so far. It's huge, and because of that, we're going to make sure that officers do the best thing that, they can. At this time, also, I'd like to recognize a couple of legislators that are here. Maria Sims and Yil Norgard, and they're all friends of ours who support what we do. So thank you for being here, guys. And I know still a couple of people, but they don't tell me. Okay? At this time, I'd like to introduce someone who's been to this conferences for so many years, an old friend, the Director of the Department of Corrections, Chuck Ryan. Come on, Chuck.
Well, thank you, Alberto, and good morning. Before I share a few thoughts, I would ask you to join me in a moment of silence. This past Monday night, Stephen Arvayo, a Department of Corrections background investigator, was murdered at his residence. Thank you. The Department of Corrections is a proud part of the public safety community. The 9,000 employees of ADC are responsible for maintaining the effective custody and control of 42,000 inmates and 5,400 offenders under community supervision. And we are committed to public safety and recidivism reduction. I serve with other agency directors on Governor Ducey's Goal Council, whose efforts are focused on reducing recidivism in our state. 39.1% of offenders are reincarcerated within 3 years of their release. This number is too high, and it takes a toll on the prison system, the community, and the taxpayers. DUI offenders contribute significantly to both our prison population and our recidivism rate. Let's consider these statistics. As of October 31st, 1,553 inmates, or 3.7%, were serving felony sentences for DUI. Again, the population is 42,000. It cost the taxpayers $37,600,000 to incarcerate those DUI offenders annually. In FY17, There were 1,290 admissions for DUI. There were 1,426 DUI offenders released from prison. 77% of inmates assessed at intake have a need for substance abuse treatment. In FY17, 1,153 inmates completed DUI drug treatment. We currently have 17 substance abuse counselors, and we're seeking to expand licensed substance abuse counselors to meet moderate to intensive treatment needs to serve an additional 5,310. We have 2 DUI prisons, both 500 beds each, exclusively intended for DUI offenders. If you've seen men in orange out here on the Capitol Mall, they're all DUI offenders. At our state prison at Perryville, on the west side of the valley, we have a contracted DUI programming for females. We have a very robust AA and NA program led by staff, over 255 volunteers trained in substance abuse education or other programs. The department seeks to expand the level of services offered by volunteers, specifically in 12-step, self-help, education, and other programming needs. We even have inmate peers, lead groups. They're in recovery, and they are modeling appropriate behavior. The department admits to the system 18,000 inmates each year, and this past year we released about the same number. For the first time since 1974, our prison system's growth has leveled off and is flat. However, 18% of the people that are released from the department return as technical violators, and of those, 48% were for warrants due to drug and alcohol-related violations. We have 2 community reentry centers, one in Tucson and one here in Phoenix, and their focus is intensive treatment, housing, and it's a residential program for those people who have relapsed to substance abuse usage. All offenders are afforded an opportunity to get sober and remain in the community. It is the only realistic alternative to returning to prison. Last year, a total of 638 offenders have been through the program and 45% successfully completed. All of these efforts contribute to our agency's goal of reducing our recidivism rate by 25% in 10 years. Yet as long as people continue to make bad decisions to drink and drive, ADC will remain firmly committed to incarcerating convicted DUI offenders, providing substance abuse programs that they need, and keeping our communities safe. Drinking and driving risks lives. It also can ruin lives. As we all enjoy the holiday season and every day of the year, I urge the public to make the right decision to drive sober. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. And what a message, and the cost to taxpayers when somebody commits a felony DUI, et cetera, et cetera. At this time, I'd like to recognize some of my fellow cabinet members that are here for Governor Ducey. And I can see that Director John Coca is here from Liquor Control, Superintendent of Liquor. Also, we have the Department of Homeland Security Director, Gil Orienta. I see him back there. The Government Relations Director for ADOT, another partner as part of what we do, is John Carlson, who's known each other for 20, 30 years. And a couple of the policy advisors I see back there, Tim Romer and Matt Clark. Tim is the policy advisor for the governor on public safety, and Matt is transportation and local communities. Thank you for being here. I also see T.J. Hope, another great legislator from the Coolidge, Arizona, and thank you, T.J., for being here, and some of the other staff, our budget persons, another gentleman I've known for years, Laddie and Brett, people that we mix with every day in order to get what we do in Arizona. This time, I also would like to bring in someone that's I know for a lot of years also, and who does a great job in the Department of Public Safety, Director Frank Milstead.
Good morning and thank you. Let me cover a couple of things up front. First off, the choir was incredible, and they reminded me of something I was told a long time ago, that God loved Arizona best because he mixed all 50 states into ours. And I think the men and women that are out here representing law enforcement are examples of why this is such a great place to live. On behalf of Alberto Gutierrez, who's a dear friend, he can draw a crowd. Thank you all for being here and his continued support to help keep Arizona safe, especially on the roads. And then really for Governor Ducey to allow me to occupy this position, represent the Arizona Department of Public Safety, and use all the resources that we control to try to keep Arizona safe, not only during the holiday season, but really all year long. And then quickly a thank you. We started a program about 2-3 weeks ago, No Need for Speed, and Arizona has complied. And I asked myself this question real briefly. I said, why did this work so well? And I think it's because it wasn't a threat, it was about compliance. It was about, hey, just do us a favor and slow down a little bit and we'll worry about the chronic offenders because we won't have to worry about everybody. And I literally got text messages from people saying it's working, that the compliance is working. So this year, after a number of years in law enforcement, I would just ask you this: comply. Don't do drugs and drive. Don't drink and drive. Use your friends as your transportation. Call me if you have to. I'll come out. But the bottom line is, if you comply and you just make good decisions, we can deal with the chronic offenders and we can keep Arizona safe. It's really just that simple. I appreciate the support from the media and the relationships that we've built. On the non-compliance part, my dear friend, I was told if I called her my old friend I was going to get hit, so I'm going to leave it as my dear friend, Jerry Williams and I. We are starting troopers and traffic cops this weekend, so along the 51, the 17, the 10, 101, we're going to work those access points to try to keep those who have drank too much or ingested illicit or illegal substances and driving impaired from driving the wrong direction on our freeways. So I appreciate our relationship and partnership over the last 30 years together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. I'd like to recognize also the officers, the commanders, and the majors from the Department of Public Safety. My old friend Wade Webb, who's a new Lieutenant Colonel, Highway Patrol, is here. And like everything else, troopers do a terrific job. Thank you, Frank. It's a long list, guys. Sorry. At this time, I want to recognize another friend. Her and her husband are known for too many years. And with that introduction, our great Phoenix Police Chief, Jerry Williams.
So I call Alberto the Godfather. And you call someone the Godfather lovingly, I will say, Alberto, because he has a heart and a passion to bring this many law enforcement entities throughout this great state of Arizona together to combat chronic problems that we have with DUI. I am the proud representative of the Phoenix Police Department, and as I look out into the audience and as I know the people behind me, the police chiefs, the sheriffs, the members of government and elected officials, we are all committed to making sure that we prevent harm to our communities. And we prevent harm by being partners in public safety. We prevent harm through MAD and other entities and functions like that, just to bring the education and awareness. I'm so excited, Frank, that first you didn't call me old or fat this time. I appreciate that. But honestly, because we're working together in partnership so that every single person who decides to traverse the highways and the roadways in Arizona can do so safely, and those who make the obvious choice not to, we're able to take action and apprehend them to keep you, our community, safe. So Alberto Gutierrez, to you, Godfather, thank you so much for bringing us together, and everyone have a great and safe holiday season.
You did it. You know, I knew it was going to say that. I don't know why, but that's Jerry, and her husband is an old friend also, who's a JP in South Phoenix, and we go back a lot of years. I also like to recognize Chief Brigette, who's the new overseas traffic for Phoenix Police, who's been helping us since she became the chief. He's right there, but you know, those are the chiefs that when I have a problem I call and things get done. Isn't that amazing? But anyway, at this time, I want to recognize the sheriffs in Arizona. And the first speaker is going to be the sheriff of Pima County, Mike Napier, who couldn't be here last year, but Mike's done a terrific job since he became sheriff. But also I'd like to see Sheriff Lamb, Sheriff Clark, Sheriff Penzone. I don't know if Joe Dedman is here from Apache County, but also Greeley County Sheriff Tim Summer to stand behind us, the sheriffs that are here. There's 6 of them supposed to be here, and I know 4 or 5 I know are here. So go ahead. Come on, Casey. Come on, Mike. Who else is here? You know, this is our crowd, okay? Listen.
Well, good morning. It is indeed an honor to be here representing Pima County and the men and women of the Pima County Sheriff's Department, who are proud partners with Alberto and the Governor's Office of Highway Safety to keep the roadways in Pima County much safer. I've firsthand seen the tragedy of impaired driving. I was a DUI officer in the 90s with the Tucson Police Department and very active. I was a DRE and witnessed firsthand the tragedy of DUI. But moreover, as a young kid, I lived with the tragedy. My mother was struck by a drunk driver when she was 16 years old, spent 3 months in the hospital and never finished high school as a result of being hit by an impaired driver, and suffered medical problems the entirety of her life because of that one night and one bad decision made by an impaired driver. So I grew up with that. I lived with that every day of my life and became very committed to taking impaired drivers off the roadway as I became a law enforcement officer. In the 1990s, I also had the unfortunate event of being with Sergeant John Blazier of the Department of Public Safety approximately 1 hour before he was struck and killed by a drunk driver. I'll never forget that night. I'll never forget the last time I shook his hand as we stood beside the roadway on I-10 at St. Mary's, and I can picture it like it was yesterday. And little did I know that he would never go home that night at the hands of a drunk driver. I have witnessed firsthand the tragedy of impaired driving on our roadways, but at the same time, witnessed the great promise of this group today and the great partnership that we have with the Governor's Office of Highway Traffic Safety, the great support and the great evolution of our craft in interdicting and prosecuting impaired drivers at a much higher level and much higher competency than we did just a decade ago. And a lot of that is due to Alberto and the team that we have and this great partnership that we have with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, which is evidenced, as many have pointed out already, by this great turnout today. So I'm very proud of my department and the great partnership that we have with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. And let's not make another tragedy during this holiday season. There's no excuse. We have Uber, we have Lyft. There is really no reason now to drive impaired. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Mark? Pinal County.
I got 4 pages of notes here. Do I honestly look like somebody who has 4 pages of notes? I want to thank Alberto, the governor, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, for all the support they give us, for the overtime, the equipment, the training that we have. One of the major problems that we're seeing across this country, and Arizona is not immune to it, and the governor has taken it to task, is the opioid epidemic as well. We did a DUI task force last week. We had 12 DUI arrests. 8 of those were DUI drugs. That is becoming the norm and the problem that we're dealing with as law enforcement. And so this message is not only to drink responsibly and have a great time during the holiday season, but it is to remind you that driving while impaired under marijuana, the effects of marijuana or prescription pills, is likewise illegal, and we will stop you as law enforcement. And we're committed to keeping our streets safe from all of these things. We live in a great country, and we have the fine men and women that serve in the military and law enforcement to thank for that. God bless this state. God bless you as law enforcement, and God bless this country. Let's have a great holiday season. Be safe and be responsible. Thank you very much.
The gentleman has been here with our news conference every year, coming from very far, the great sheriff of Navajo County, Casey Clark.
Thank you, Alberto. I appreciate the partnership we have with you. This every year we come down here and we do this, and we get this message out, and it's helped. You know, we listened to Director Ryan talk about the cost. And that was the dollar cost, but what he didn't talk about was the human cost that Sheriff Napier talked about. This happens way too often across our state. the men and women that are out here today and behind me and in front of us risk their lives every day to keep citizens here safe. What I'd like to do is offer a challenge to the great citizens of Arizona, and this year make it the smallest amount of DUI arrests during the holiday season that's taken place since the Governor's Office of Highway Safety started doing these press conferences. With that, thank you. Have a good Christmas.
And I'd like to introduce our Sheriff of Maricopa County, Pope and Zone, who has been modifying a lot of stuff, but I've been meeting with their sergeant and their officers, and MCSO does a great job supporting all the other agencies in what we do. Paul?
I think by this point in the news conference, most of the words have been used up, so I'll do my best to try to be original. This is a very, very serious issue, as you all know. And I think one of the mistakes that we make is when we talk about impaired driving, we treat it as though it's bad judgment. And it's not bad judgment, it's bad behavior. And at MCSO, our mantra right now is lead by example. We have incredible men and women, as those from all the other agencies who are here today, who are willing to sacrifice. But ultimately, for everyone here, everyone watching, lead by example should be the mantra for this entire community. That means making sound decisions. It's not about bad judgment, as I said, it's about bad behavior, and showing through your example that impaired driving is unacceptable. Having the courage to turn to your loved ones or your friends when you know that they're making a bad decision that will lead to a bad behavior, and saying that it's unacceptable, and stepping in and stopping it from occurring. And as I think back, there's not a person in this crowd that doesn't have a personal experience relative to drunk driver taking a life. And when I think about the children that were here singing earlier, every one of us should be inspired to say it's our job to make this community a safer, a better place for that generation. And as we lead by example in this holiday season, we can be a beacon, we can lead the nation and show what we stand for. And it all begins today with our attitude about letting others know who we are, what we stand for, what we're willing to do to sacrifice for the safety of others. So to the men and women in uniform, God bless you and thank you for what you do. It is truly my greatest honor, my profession, to be the Sheriff of Maricopa County and to stand with these other men and women back in law enforcement to serve others. Thank you.
We're going to revert now to some of the task forces that we have in Arizona. And I surprised him. He didn't know he was going to speak today, but he is. Super Police of Chandler, Sean Dugan. Sean?
Well, actually, I am prepared because he surprised me last year as well. So, Alberto, thank you very much for your tremendous partnership and your support that you provide to law enforcement throughout the entire state. And 3 years ago, the Chandler Police Department experienced a tragic loss when one of our officers was struck and killed by an impaired driver. He was a motor officer, David Payne, and he was actually out on a DUI patrol when he was killed. So like many families, many people in our community, we understand, we've experienced it firsthand, the suffering and the loss, whether it's a colleague or family member or friend. So with that, I just want to let all of our men and women that will be working this holiday season to know that your efforts are greatly appreciated because you will be making a difference every single night when you're out there. You will be making a difference in our community, preventing further tragedies from occurring. So please know that, and we support you, and we are very much appreciative of the hard work that you put in and the sacrifices that you make on a daily basis. So thank you very much.
At this point, I'd like to recognize some of these Valley Chiefs that are here. I see Chief Alan Robert from Scottsdale. Tempe Police Department, Sylvia Moore. You're here, Sylvia. Thank you for being here. And Apache Junction Chief Tom Kelly. And I don't want to forget Arizona State University Police Chief Mike Thompson. Go Devils. And sorry. And we also see that we have Paradise Valley Police Chief Pete Wingard, who's a great job, et cetera, et cetera. And then our Soul River Pima Maricopa Indian Community Chief Cole Overback. And if I miss somebody, I'm sorry, guys, but I didn't have it on my list. So, but thank you to them. And at this time, because of these Valley, I want to recognize another person who's back there being shy. But there's something that we do on the holidays, and it's provide food to the officers at this Valley DUI Task Force. And I see Heather Hurst standing right there, who is the one that provides with another gentleman, and just would like to speak. But you know what, Heather, thank you on behalf of the East Valley DUI Task Force for going through all those details for the whole month of December and all the details that you have. At the same time, now I want to recognize an officer, and I'd like to have Officer Jose Angulo from Chandler PD to come forward. Jose, where are you?